I see you're working with the sovereign lands of the Native Americans and probably Rwanda too. There's not the building codes and permits that you have to go through?
Well, Native America, we don't have to deal with that at this point. In rural Rwanda, these structures, they're permanent in nature, but they're portable. You can take them down and you can leave the land as you first saw it. Again, following the beauty of how Native Americans lived in harmony with the land, but only doing the 21st century technologies. So because they're portable in nature, but yet permanent in function, that opens up new ways that you can erect these structures in respect to building codes and regulations and et cetera. And in the sense of rural Rwanda, our first, we have the land, our first effort to erect the structure will be strictly as a model that can be taken down, portable, so that we're not addressing any issues of compliance with the authorities. The concept is that in Africa and in Native America, when you look at all the land that is undeveloped in Native America, and you look at all the land that is undeveloped in Rwanda and good parts of Africa, the concept is instead of creating prosperity for your populace the 20th century way, as we have done in the last 200 years, and now we're just trying to fix what we've created in this old technology of the way we deal with our waste, the way we build homes, the way we move our water, gas, energy, etc. We start anew. So Native America in rural Africa, the continent, can have the choice now. Do they go the old 20th century way, and that has brought us to the point of degradation that we currently experience? Or do we go into a 21st century infrastructure? And we believe IDEA is the beginning of that process. And we see it as part of the process of saving our planet. And we see Native America and rural Rwanda, and it's interesting, they both share a very violent histories of genocide. They will be the people that will lead us into this new 21st century infrastructure world.
Do you have what's the idea with water and heat and flooring for these structures? How are they incorporated?
Flooring, F-L-O-O-R-I-G?
Yeah, floor. Yeah, the floor.
Well, the flooring, again, is all based on the materials we use, but it's a unique technology for our foundation, which creates the floor. And that's a whole nother subject. I can tell you that it sits on, it sounds funny, but it sits on bowling balls. If you can imagine a bowling ball. If you can imagine a bowling ball.
Are built from tires, so, I can imagine.
Well, yeah, you can imagine a bowling ball that's half immersed in the ground with the top half being shown and the bottom half in the ground. And then also this unique, again, we had 8 prototypes and a very unique way of creating lightweight foundation. It's another process. The foundation is one technology. The structure itself, that one component I referred to earlier, is the other part. So the floor, the concept is that these components become utilities. And as you put up the foundation, you're creating the floor. It's hard to explain. You'd have to see the drawings, etc. But and the former prototypes. There is an earlier prototype online at 21st Century 21stcenturyidea.com, 21stcenturyidea.com. regenerative.com. And that particular structure, and again, this was 1980, so that's 30. Four of us put that up at the spring fair in 4 hours. And people were walking around at the spring fair, and it shows the picture there and online. They were kind of amazed, and we all said, well, this is the future, 40 years, 50 years, it's going to be a different world. Well, obviously, it's interesting. Nothing really has changed in our current infrastructure. Another example of that, I'm an older guy. I'm a boomer. I'm an old boomer. I remember going to Disneyland as a kid in 1957 or something like this, and I saw the monorail. And, we got in a car. We drove down the freeway in 1957. We went to Disneyland. I saw the monorail. My first reaction to that as a kid is, oh, man, when I'm an old guy, the world is going to be really different. It's going to be really different. Well, interestingly enough, since that time, it hasn't changed one bit. You still get on the freeway to Anaheim. We lived in the San Fernando Valley, and those monorails are still the same and really haven't been employed in this country since then. But I think all of that is going to change dramatically in the next 10, 20. We're going to see major, major changes in our infrastructure. And America will probably, with the exception of our project, Native America, will probably be the last to adopt it. That's why the African continent now is becoming the test bed for new technologies, because they can go from the 19th century to the 21st century. They can leapfrog immediately, and or any other areas where there's undeveloped land. I don't know if I was getting off on a little tangent, but I hope I answered your question.
Yes. Okay, I'll bring in anybody else have a comment or question?
Yeah, I finally have. Hello, Tony.
Yes, Bob.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, you say you're one of the benefits of your structures is they can be built in one day or put up in one day.
It can be erected in one day.
Well, my wife and I were looking at dome homes, and you say your technology is a little bit advanced with that, but over by St. Paul, Minnesota, there's an outfit that makes dome homes, and you need to pour a concrete foundation ahead of time, and then once you have the concrete foundation, like maybe a 50-foot diameter geodesic dome, they have the frames pre-built, and a crew of 3 can put the entire structure up and have it rainproof in one afternoon. The entire structure, yeah. And once it's built, these geodesic domes can withstand up to 300-mile-an-hour winds. They're basically hurricane and tornado proof, and so the thing that I'm wondering about, since I haven't seen your structures, how are they going to perform in real high winds and conditions like that? What keeps them from blowing away if you're just setting them on the ground and don't have them structurally tied down and very lightweight?
Well, thank you for that question. I'm sorry, what is your name?
My name's Bob, but Sandy's my wife. Sandy is one.
Well, he took my question. I was curious as to how your structures withstand, let's say, hurricane winds or earthquakes or other climatic conditions.
I understand that. Now, as we know, 300 mile an hour winds is pretty good. Most traditional. There isn't many places in the world that can withstand 300 mile an hour winds, no matter what you have. But that's pretty good. Now, keep in mind that the microweight structure is exactly that. It's microweight. It's about creating space in the most effective, efficient, and affordable manner that you can do it. And because it's lightweight, when it comes together, it becomes very strong. It becomes monocoque is a term they use. It becomes one piece, becomes very strong when it's all connected. similar to the dome. But keep in mind, this is only 7/8 of an inch thick building SIP, structured insulated panel. Now the panel, it's a little different design. And as far as the foundation and winds, now in our experience in our 7 prototype, we had one 70-mile-an-hour winds that had no problems. The way it works is because it's lightweight, it's tethered firmly into the ground on each corner, okay, and it's screwed down in the form. And so 300-mile-an-hour winds, I don't know. Not many things that can take that, but it will take high winds, and it becomes very permanent. And because it's one piece, but it's firmly tethered into the ground. Now, we noticed that as far as earthquakes are concerned, and we did experience 2 earthquakes in our prototypes back in the 89 earthquake and one before that. This is Northern California. That there was no damage because they just sort of bounced. As the earthquake and as different, the natures of earthquakes are different. Sometimes they go left or right, and there's a big jerk. Sometimes they just rumble. I've been in 3, so I know that one in L.A. was a rumble. The one up here was a jerk. These kind of just sort of bounce on top of the ground, and the one monocoque shape doesn't, because you're not ensconced into the ground. And I've been talking to some geodesic people. They're interested in our foundation. I think our foundation would be more effective for their domes. The whole concept is you can put the thing up in a day, but you said you have to go in there with the cement and build the foundation. Now you're changing the environment. You're moving rocks. You're cutting down trees. You're moving fauna. You're disrupting nature. And the microwave structure doesn't do that. Again, the concept is to live lightly on the ground, to take the Native American way of living and only bring it to a 21st century, to evolve it into a 21st century way of doing that.
Okay, I have 2 more questions. One is, what do you go by circumference when you erect these, or what does the finished product appear to look like? And also, what is the median temperature inside of these? Does it remain constant? Okay.
Let me, if I forget the second question, please remind me. I'll go to the first one. What was your first question again? I'm sorry.
Do they go by circumference? Are they circular?
Yeah.
Or what do they look like? What does the outside look like?
This is geometric square geometry. We're talking about squares. Okay. It's all about squares, okay? As opposed to geodesic is a diameter, is a circle. This is square.
Okay. How many square feet do you erect these?
Well,
is it a variable?
We're working on. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, can you get various sizes?
No, again, it's one building component, one piece that 2 people can carry because it's lightweight.
Okay.
You can go off road. You can build these things off road.
Okay. How many square feet?
It can be, as long as it's square, because you can make an amphitheater out of the same piece.
Okay. And then the rooms inside are sectioned off, so to speak?
No, we're just about a shell. No, we're talking about a shell.
Okay.
Now we have, we had a prototype that showed this years ago, but we're working on that. We can create second and third floors using the same lightweight kinds of technology. So to answer your question, if you look online, that isn't the way it looks now. That's using a lot of the technology of the foundation and the structure insulated panel. But if you were to say, if you look at it, I'm telling you, you've never seen anything like it. It looks different. But I'd say its closest thing would be more like in a pyramid shape.
Okay. And does the temperature stay constant?
Oh, yes. So, as I mentioned earlier, I lived in one, a small one, for 6 months behind a Victorian in downtown Santa Cruz years ago for 6 months. It was one of the most comfortable beds I ever had because it was an 8x8 structure. It was the minimum one. You start with 8 square feet and go up to as big as you want to go to. And it was bolted and screwed together then. It wasn't snapped together. And I had a little space heater. You know, it goes on when it gets hot. It gets cold. Thermostat. And I went through just some cold winter that time. And that thing was as toasty and comfortable as any space I've ever slept in. The reason being is that because of these SIPs, structure insulated panels, are 7/8 inches thick, right? So with the skin is a 1/4 inch thick. Excuse me, a 1/4 inch thick. So the 1/8 inch and then 5/8 inch in the middle is insulation. When they come together and sealed, and these were bolted and screwed, and it now the R factor becomes very, very good because no heat is lost, right? Because again, it becomes like one piece. So you have good insulation. Like back then, you see, this was again back in the 70s, 80s. We were working with 5/8 inch high density styrofoam, which is a very good material for insulation. It's very lightweight. I know you've seen it probably, but it's hard. You know, it's not like styrofoam you can stick your thumb in it. You can do that, but it's hard. It's high density styrofoam. And
let me interrupt there, Tony. Since you're talking about R values, what is the R value of a sheet?
Well, that's something that we have not had recently. Back then, and this is with the other kind of roofing structure or different.
I mean, every piece of material has an R factor. Like if you go to a lumber yard and buy a 1-inch thick styrofoam, it has an R factor of something like 11.
About 15 to 20. Now, at least that was our informal way of managing it back then. We haven't tested the R factor with the new materials and the new insulation we're using because we plan to use, there's an amazing amount of new organic insulation materials coming out now. You guys probably know about it. It's incredible, the explosion of new kinds of insulation materials, hempcrete being one of them, but there are so many more. Aerocrete, about 4 or 5 that I've come across of. We want this, of course, to not use styrofoam. We want this to be an organic material. So that has to be proven of the best insulation to use in this, and that's the stage we're at now. That's why we're in that funding stage.